not sure if everyone's heard of what natalism is, what it is to be natalist or pro-natalist. But in the case of Elon Musk, it's a billionaire egomaniac who thinks that he has magic sperm that needs to be spread throughout the world to save humanity. So, I mean, that's just so you guys know, that's where
really
he's coming from. I know. I'm sorry to inflict that upon you guys. But the reason that Tucker Carlson is asking questions about this is a whole different thing entirely. Now,
sorry.
Sorry, there was a little pop-up. But natalism is it's just a step away really from eugenics, especially when it's coming out of the mouths of right-wingers. They're really focused on birth rates. But frankly, they're focused on birth rates of white people. They don't say that explicitly, but that is the undertone. And this is a part of a theme of Tucker Carlson wanting to build a Viktor Orban style political movement in the United States. And Elon Musk's weird fixation with having as many kids as possible in order to save the planet, is just a convenient vehicle for that. So here we go. Stupid, dumb people talking to each other on Fox News, Tucker Carlson's interview with Elon Musk.
Yes.
And I think we just want to make sure that we have civilization go onward and upward. That's, for example, why I'm concerned about decreasing birth rates and the fact that, for example, Japan had twice as many deaths last year as births. So that's they're a leading indicator.
Can I say, and you've written and talked a lot about this, but can I just ask you to pause just for a parenthetical note? Why is that? I mean, the urge to have sex and to procreate is, after breathing and eating, the most basic urge.
Yes.
How has it been subverted?
Well, it's just in the past we could rely upon simple limbic system rewards
Yes.
in order to procreate. But once you have birth control and abortions and whatnot, now you can still satisfy the limbic instinct, but not procreate. So we haven't yet evolved to deal with that, because this is all fairly recent, last 50 years or so.
Oh, it has?
For birth control. So I'm sort
why I
of worried
my
that, hey,
gift to that
civilization,
flight attendant.
if we don't make enough people to at least sustain our numbers, perhaps increase a little bit, then civilization is going to crumble. There's the old question of will civilization end with a bang or a whimper? Well, it's currently trying to end with a whimper in adult diapers.
Yes.
Which is depressing as hell.
Yes. All right, so there's a lot there. When he says civilization, that's a pretty good indication of what they're talking about here, which is white people. Pair that with when you hear people speak about the out-of-control birth rates in Africa, for example. These are the same kind of people that are concerned about birth rates in the United States or in their home country. And they'll also be the same people that are very nationalist, anti-immigrant, and want there to be no immigration, so no new kinds of babies coming in, but our babies need to be procreated. And this is just Viktor Orban politics. There was this great write-up in Mother Jones it was written by Abby Vasulis, and I'll borrow from her a little bit for some of this context. But Orban in Hungary is, yes, he's a nationalist, he's anti-migrant, he's literally built a wall in Hungary, trying to borrow from kind of the US context on that front. He's banned LGBTQ teachings in school, borrowing from the DeSantis. Like, this is all kind of connected. Has been restricting gay adoption. So he's anti-gay, anti-migrant, very right-wing. And also, not so coincidentally, has been at the head of demonizing George Soros, who's a Hungarian native, with not so subtle anti-Semitic undertones. So Tucker Carlson loves the Viktor Orban politics. He did a documentary about him. He highlighted some of these things that Orban is doing in Hungary, including his claims that George Soros is trying to weaken Hungary by funding refugees and migrants coming into the border, which sounds very familiar. But at the heart of Tucker's praise of Orban is the natalism, the fact that he's not a free market fundamentalist in the way that, say, traditional American conservatives are. Like, the Hungarian government is right now subsidizing IVF clinics, but only for straight people. Lesbians, gay people can't, people who can get pregnant who may be non-binary or trans, excluded from these tens of thousands of dollars in essentially tax subsidies for IVF if you need help getting pregnant. He also is providing parental leave for mothers for years, but only days for fathers, and also these tax credits so young women will leave the workforce essentially. Like, these are all heterosexual focused, normative, patriarchal incentives done by the government, which really is a lot more in line with Tucker Carlson's politics in terms of what he's trying to promote right now. That's why he was getting praise for saying that he would ban automated trucks in order to save jobs in this country. He's not in that way like gonna allow big business to determine his politics if it gets in the way of his project of white supremacy, essentially. And so that's really at the core of what I want to explore here, and why I don't think this is just like a throwaway weird thing from this interview. This is something that right-wingers are already starting to adopt. There was a copycat bill in Texas. An Orban-linked think tank is in the midst of this battle in Tennessee, funding right-wingers there. So just really something to monitor closely, in my opinion. Go ahead, guys.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, we constantly, we know Tucker. He's basically using this because he knows this whole interview actually is a great example of Tucker Carlson leading and literally getting Elon Musk to say exactly what he wants, really. I mean, he just plays up to Elon Musk the entire interview, no matter what the topic, about what a genius Elon is. And then he asks him a question and sort of gets Elon to say what Tucker would want, but it's coming from Elon Musk. So a genius has said it this time. It's just not some Fox News host who's saying it. It's Elon Musk, the rocket scientist, the electric car maker, never mind the other stuff. So that's what I sort of was my overall takeaway from the interview. And this is clearly like when did it, I guess this does fit into whole. And again, this is the idea that Tucker knows what he needs to say to Elon to get Elon to give him what he wants. Elon's always been all about how all of his projects, everything he does is to save the consciousness of humanity. And so Tucker just needs to bring up the whole birth rate issue, which has already been feeding into Musk from other right-wingers, as you can see it play out in Twitter in real time. And he gets exactly what he wants out of it. I think you explained exactly what that is, Emma. But, it's not surprising. I mean, honestly, I don't see how anyone can watch this interview. I mean, before this interview, but especially after watching this interview, regardless of it being him talking with Tucker, just the content of what they're saying, and not come away with this with saying, I mean, Elon Musk is a full bore right winger. Like, it's just that simple. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head, Emma, when you mentioned that what this actually is, which is Tucker Carlson and, to I guess a slightly lesser extent, Elon Musk trying to cloak a generally regressive, generally anti-woman, generally, xenophobic idea about like population with a more banal message about like there just not being enough American families. Like the American middle class family as this construct allows for people to, argue for a lot of regressive things under the veil of just trying to protect traditional values as represented in a more banal way, like, the Cleavers, Leave It to Beaver, or like the Bradys. And, the fact that there are no black people in that suburb doesn't, come up. And the fact that, population rates that they're concerned about are only in the quote unquote Western world. But, I think that a lot of people are fooled by these kinds of messages the same way they're fooled by like we just want to not teach kids about sexuality until they're ready rhetoric, because they're just, seemingly reasonable things that are in reality code for incredibly regressive politics.
Yes, and it also is meant to deepen a divide between the straights, the white heteronormative family, and the rest of society, which is why, like, being fooled by this kind of faux populist rhetoric is concerning, because the universality is the only way forward for pretty much any government program. And like, I also have my skepticism that we would be able to implement any kind of parental subsidy in this country, because we did have a child tax credit that came out during COVID, and Joe Manchin and other conservative Democrats and all the Republicans were instrumental in killing that. Now, if it was tailored just to straight people, they might be on board with it, but there still is that undertone in the Republican Party that's opposed to any kind of government assistance that isn't embedded in, I would imagine, in the same way in like the conservative movement in countries, say like Hungary.
Well, yeah, I think Tucker Carlson has said it before, too. Like, we need a lot of poor whites, too. We need a lot of poor whites in the military. We can't have a lot of, we can only have so many middle-class families with middle-class kids who can, afford to not be shuttled into the military-industrial complex to fight our imaginary war with China and our real shadow wars with the rest of the world, which are proxy wars for our war with China at this point. And so, this construct of the American family can serve a dual purpose. A, we need to valorize a very specific kind of lifestyle, and B, as people try to achieve that lifestyle, they inevitably fall into the traps that make it impossible to, raise a child without any sort of financial stress. And, ultimately we are just leave so many cracks open for those children to fall into, so they can fall into the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex. We monetize our failures the same way we monetize our successes in this country. So, I think he gets his way either way.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I also just find like the centering of also Elon, when he talks about, the limbic system response.
Oh,
like,
yeah. He's a scientist.
I'm just fascinated by also his sort of like kind of foray into basically being like birth control is in the influx or introduction of a contraception is bad because like it has introduced more like casual or like non-procreative sex, and that I said like essentially like the negative connotation of like having sex for enjoyment as opposed to having sex for like
well, that's
populating the earth.
That's the fundamentalism
totally.
that, I mean, I think Elon's just a weirdo and an idiot. Let's reiterate that. Like, he's not consciously appealing to Christian fundamentalists in this country, but for Tucker's purposes, this is also very helpful for fascism
100%,
because then it's justification for limiting abortion and birth control.
Because if you're already telegraphing that like sex is sort of inherent to / has to equal procreation, it could almost become an inroad to like, you should not have sex unless you are intending to be pregnant.
And that's why homosexuality is dangerous. Right. Yeah.
I think the world's most divorced man is correct. Women have too much freedom.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson we've learned here, because despite him, giving it the thin veneer of like women's natural cycles are being interrupted by too much outside estrogen, this is just another, right-winger complaining about women's liberation, women's sexual liberation. This is his way of complaining that women have too many options in the marketplace of, intimacy, I guess, if you want to call it that, commodify it that way. And, obviously he's not doing very well in that marketplace, despite the fact that he's the world's richest man. And so I can see why he feels like women being freer is an assault on, certainly his freedom,
Yeah.
But ultimately, they've complained about this since the 70s, 80s. You know, for as long as women have been like trying to achieve the ability to not be shackled to their husband, the husbands have been going, well, actually, that's where they belong. That's how we create a strong America.
Yes, women should only be vessels for my space travel sperm, which is superior to the other white.
How will
other
we
people.
populate Mars?
Yeah.
Elon, of course, wants civilization not to end with a whimper. He'd like to end with a bang. With me banging with somebody for my next 9 children.
Oh, I thought that was a reference to the rocket that blew up.
That too.
I thought so at first too, but then I saw where you were going with it. Yeah, I mean, that's
It's
another
a double
thing, right?
entendre. Bradley's
Yeah.
very sophisticated.
That's another
I'm a
thing going
linguist.
on right now,
Well,
right? That
I-
rocket.
There's something, a good metaphor for Elon's rockets not being able to last 5 minutes.
You should tweet that.